Welcome to the Author to Authority podcast. Today, for the first time in a very long time, all of the Authority gang is here. So we have Carol Boston, Samantha King, and Krystle Dookoo. And I'm so happy to have all of us together again for today's Authority Gang podcast episode. And today we're going to be talking about how we are all using social media to build our business. So the good, the bad, maybe some ugly, we'll see. But first, I just want to give everybody a quick opportunity to introduce yourself. So Carol, share who you are with the world.
I'm the Queen of Reframe. I thought everybody knew that by now.
Well, we've always got new listeners, so it's been a while. So.
Oh, goodness. I'm a high-performance business coach who helps female business owners, family attorneys, and sometimes a few good men to know their value, own their power, and advocate for themselves. So they rise up and become the lioness and lion leaders they were created to be. And this has resulted in many of them doubling and tripling the income in their business and in their practices.
Awesome, Carol. Samantha.
Yeah, I'm excited to be back. It's been a while. I'm Samantha King. I'm a former teacher turned online course mentor, and I help service providers package and sell what they know into digital products that run without them.
Yay! Krystle.
Hi, everyone. My name is Krystle Dookoo, and I'm excited to be here. I'm a social media manager to the stars, to the stars of your business, which is you. I work with entrepreneurs who are in business for 2 years and focus on service-based business, and I enjoy helping them grow their business and their platform and their audience online.
Wonderful. Okay, so the first question for today, and we'll go around in a circle and then we'll all comment on each other's, is what are you doing that's working in social media right now? So who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I'm doing a couple of things. I have my Carol's Courage to Confidence Corners on Mondays at noon. And now that I've gotten, one of the things I've learned from both of the shows that I'm doing is consistency of time. And when I first started, I was all over the place. And my great social media manager, Krystle, would run all the analytics and say, this is when the most people show up. And this is, that's a great thing about having someone, that knows how to do that kind of stuff for you. So I do that on Mondays now, getting a lot of great engagement. And on Wednesday evenings, I have Carol's Craft Cocktail Hour. And they've both allowed me to not only grow my audience, but to get clients from both of those as well.
And you're the Facebook person.
Yeah, I'm the Facebook person.
Which is funny because I remember, Carol, as we've talked about your evolution on social media, you said I never wanted to be the Facebook person.
I did not. I really didn't. And COVID, took me from being all offline to all online. And that's where I started. And I think a big part of what helped my social media work was just showing up. Mm-hmm. And then when I learned from Suzanne Evans about doing Facebook Live swaps with people whose audience were in alignment with mine, and that took off, that really is where Queen of Reframe really was solidified. Like a lot of the podcasts that I did and Facebook Lives, it was table talk with the Queen of Reframe. Mm-hmm. And when I say about being visible, and then I'll be quiet and let someone else go, is that when I first started doing those Facebook Live swaps at the end of September, early October last year, fast forward to December, and I'm sitting there having lunch one day, and a friend of mine sends me a Zoom invite. Hop on my Zoom. I'm doing a Zoom to Facebook Live. And so I did. And the guest speaker said, well, the people in the Zoom room introduced themselves. And it got to be my turn. And I said, my name is Carol Boston. And she leans in, she goes, you're the Queen of Reframe. And I thought, oh my God, how did she know that, right? And she goes, you know how to do those empowering questions. And I finally said, well, where have you heard of me? Now think about this. This is the second week of December. She said, I saw you on Trish Grimes' interview. Trish Grimes was the very first interview I did almost 3 months prior. So the fact that someone remembered that and it had an impact, that's when that just became a piece of my brand. So I really believe that oftentimes your clients and people will tell you who you are.
Yeah. Here's a couple of things that I kind of got from that. First of all, you gave yourself a really memorable name, right? So it wasn't just Carol Boston. It's the Queen of Reframe.
Yep.
Why I introduced myself as the Extraordinary Word Ninja. Why? Mm-hmm. People don't always remember my name, but they remember that I'm the Word Ninja lady.
Right. That's right.
Right. So I think, when you finally came up with that Queen of Reframe, you set yourself up as the authority, which made you noticeable. And then when you added consistency of, showing up on social media, I think that's what helped for things for you to really start taking off. So who wants to go next?
I think it's all like, before we move on to somebody else, I think the important thing really is, when you're working on social media, is to create a stage. Right. So Carol, that's exactly what you did. You went on lives, you've created your own stage, right? You have 2 signature shows. You've got the one that happens at noon, and then you've got the cocktail hour, right? And I know yesterday, I wasn't able to tune in, but beforehand you were posting something and I said, oh, it's going to be dinner and a show, right? And that's really because that's the vibe you've created, right? You've created this stage for that particular show, and that's the vibe. And for the other show it might be a different vibe, but you've used Facebook kind of to create your show. And the beauty of it, and Krystle, you can chime in on this, is when you go in your show and you do your show, you can pull content out of that, right? So like, you can pull quotables out of that, or as you say, the writer downers. And you can pull, like, what did people resonate with too? You're live there talking with your audience, you're like, oh, they really resonated with this. That can become a post on social media. It could become a blog post. It could become so many different things, right? So when you have your stage and you're creating content for that stage, don't forget, like, take that content and then trickle it down to everything else. Don't let one piece of content be one piece of content.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to stop here first. Krystle, I want you to speak, but Carol, you got to share what happened last night on your show, because it was so incredibly funny. And I think it just shows how you can use these things to get engagement. And I think our podcast audience just needs a laugh today. And then I want Krystle to comment on it.
So I make 2 cocktails every week. We weave in some business. We have a ton of fun. People tell stories. So one of the it's champagne month. And one of the cocktails I was making was a peach rum bubbly. So in order to make it, I peeled the peach ahead of time, chopped it up, put it in my shaker with fresh mint leaves, and it called for simple syrup. And I said, I'm going to make it peachier. So I used peach schnapps, and I let it macerate. And so, I mashed it all up, and it macerates. So all the juice, all the flavors come together. So I'm on the show and I'm explaining, and I almost dripped it on my computer. They were like, what is that? I held it up out of the thing. Right. I thought I was going to make a mess on my computer, and I put it back down. So this lady, Amy, hops on, and she's a regular every time, and she's hysterical. And she goes, I thought you were talking about the other M word, the thing you only do at home in private. And I'm like, oh no, are you going to make this a non-PG show again? Right. And that's how it just took off. And then Edna's like, okay, every time Carol says the word macerate, we have to drink. So at one point they're getting me to explain it again. And Edna's like, I just drank 3 times in a row. Like, it was hysterical. Right. So finally I told somebody, do what?
Make it a drinking game.
Yeah, she made it a drinking game. And
Yeah.
Amy's like, can you just keep saying that word a lot? Because it makes me giggle. I think you're making me feel like a teenager again. I was like, oh my God.
But I think too, the funniest part about it, if anyone knows Amy has the most innocent looking face ever. Like, and she's like, I don't drink. And then, so I commented and I was like, Amy, why? Because for the past couple of times, Amy has been the instigator in turning it into G. So I was like, so I think that was like one of the fun parts is like, she's always she turns it into a fun extra
conversation.
And that's really the vibe. It allows you to infuse some fun into your vibes, like into your brand, right? And like, and some platforms are designed to do that, right? TikTok, is usually some fun. That's usually how you infuse some fun into your brand. But Carol's done it in the stage that she's created for herself, right?
And what I wanted to comment on for anyone that is probably thinking, oh my gosh, that's so great. Now I have to sit and come up with something. You do, but what Carol did very well was that she didn't wait until she came up with these 2 shows to say, I'm going to show up online. In the meantime, you were on social media. There was a lot of trial and errors. There was a lot of, let's try this, let's see what works. And while you were getting comfortable online and growing your audience, then you found your footing. So by the time these two shows came out, you already had a good following, and then you created this as your own, and people really came into it. So I think that's important to note, that if you're feeling a little bit nervous about navigating the social media realm, you don't have to have it figured out right away. Get in there, take action like Carol did, and then as you show up and you make a promise to yourself to keep showing up, you're going to then walk into that stage, as Samantha said, that is really going to help and elevate your business.
And I think what you brought up there is really important, Krystle, is the fact that you don't have to have it all figured out. Everything doesn't have to be polished and perfect. You learn as you grow.
That is so true. The third week of January, and I started this the first week of January, I went live and nobody showed up. And I'm like, where's Krystle? Where's Beverly? They told me they would be here. I even said that on the show, right? So the show, it was kind of a short one, like 30 minutes. And I got off the show and I'm sitting there on my computer watching the replay. And Beverly texted me. She goes, when are you going to go live? I'm waiting. I'm like, but I did. And she goes, no, you didn't. And I said, I did. I'm watching the replay right now. She goes, you didn't go live on your page. And I said, what? I went live in somebody's challenge group. I didn't even know how that happened.
Yeah, I remember
I didn't know how it happened. We couldn't strip it out of there. We had to leave it in there. I came back the next week and I talked about it and I said, don't worry, those drinks were so bad I poured them down the drain anyway. We'll start over tonight.
Okay.
True story.
So Samantha, what platform are you on and what's working for you right now?
So my stage is my YouTube channel, and it really allows me to share all the questions I get asked all the time about online courses. YouTube is a great authority builder. It's also great in terms of search engines, right? Like think about anytime you search anything, you usually get Google results and some kind of YouTube results. And on top of that, if depending on what you're searching, as a homeschool mom, anytime I've searched like worksheets, I also get Pinterest, right? So I kind of look at it and go like, okay, this is, I'm doing the right thing. So for me, I love the way I've kind of set it up. Is I've set it up that my stage is YouTube, and I'm showing up right now. It's everything you want to know about online courses in 5 minutes or less. YouTube is a longer form content. So eventually I'll need to have longer videos to help grow my channel. But like to Carol's point, right now, I'm just starting where I'm at. This is where I'm at right now. This is what I'm doing. And, then I've also added in Clubhouse recently for the place where my audience can show up live. Now I'm still posting on Instagram. That's kind of like my tertiary platform there. But that, the way I look at it is I'm going to show up somewhere where it fits for me. Right? It has to work for me. And right now, live video, I as you guys know, I've been kind of engulfed in a summit that I've got coming up. And so live video just isn't really within the scheme of things. So, I've got my YouTube channel and I've got my Clubhouse where my audience can come and ask me questions live. Right? So I think it's really important that one, you find something that works for you. And like Krystle said, you do it consistently. And I've kind of blended, like, here's where my content is, but I also wanted to give my audience somewhere to show up live. And I'm really enjoying Clubhouse because of course it's audio. So, it doesn't matter, what's going on in my background. I can put my headphones in, right? And I've got 2 small kids at home. I'm an autism mom, right? So I put my headphones in and I can just host a room, join a room, talk in a room, co-host a room, all those things. And I think Krystle, as you said, and Carol, it's not perfect, right? I just started, I just started on Clubhouse and I'll figure it out. And yes, there are people that are now Clubhouse pros. And so I'm kind of figuring it behind the curve, but it's still new, right?
Yes, very.
Android just got it. So people are learning with me, even though as you guys know, I'm an iPhone user, so I've had it for a while, but it's like, just get started. Rip that Band-Aid off and you'll figure it out as you go. I think, Kim, you're right. People aren't looking for perfection anymore. Your audience is not worried about perfection. They want to get to know you.
And people get so worried, oh, the whole world's going to see this. No, they're not. Maybe 2 people might see it. Like when you're starting, you really don't have an audience, right? So I think that's the other thing too, is managing expectations when it comes to social media. When you start doing these things, are you going to have an audience? Maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
You probably have a couple of your friends see you on and join you because they love you.
And because you keep inviting them.
Because you keep inviting them, right? So,
Yep.
in the beginning, don't worry about making mistakes, because it's not like people go back and rewatch all this stuff. Now, podcasting, that's a little bit different format, because if people really like your show, they will go back and, they'll listen, right? But even then, if you make mistakes, nobody cares. Like, we think it's all about us. It's not. Nobody cares. So, but it doesn't mean that you still don't do it. You have to build in that consistency factor. And I'm going to be talking about Clubhouse in a few minutes, but Krystle, because you're a social media expert, I want to give you some opportunities to really shine here and share, what's really working in social media right now.
So I agree. There are different platforms. There's so many different platforms, and there are different things that work for different people, right? So it's always where you're most comfortable. It's always where your audience is. So think about who your audience is. Think about who it is that you want to attract, and you show up with that platform, because sometimes they may not be, there might be a hot new platform comes up, but your audience is not there. And while it might be fun to develop and everything, it's really good to spend time and do some research figuring out where your audience is. So for me, I am a little oldie in that I Facebook is not going anywhere. It's not, right? It's been around since 2004 or 3 maybe. And so it's not going anywhere, and it's going to continue evolving. So I always recommend that, at least even if you're not active on it, it's good to sometimes see, check, do some research on it. Instagram and LinkedIn. LinkedIn for me is one of my favorites because it is the largest professional networking site. To Sam's point as well, when people Google you, your LinkedIn page is the first page that comes up, and it is a good place to network. So for me, how I love to use social media is as a networking platform. So far, my business has grown from referrals and from sharing what it is that I do. So people would follow me, I would share stories, I would combine it with personal life plus business. And as a result, so the reason that this happens is that because I get so busy managing my clients' social media pages, I have not had one. So I do everything off of my personal pages, but it has brought in a lot of business because of the networking and the connections. So one of the key things that I also like to share is that it's great and continue to showcase yourself on there, because in today's world, when people Google you, they want to see what content you have before they invest, right? So it's definitely important to do that. But it's also a social networking site. So it's a great place to network. If you're thinking, how do I grow my business? Get in the groups. All these different platforms have different groups where you can really network and get to know people. Everyone on this podcast I've met through networking and being on the groups, and then you find that you have a common goal, or they have a service that you need, or you have a service they need, and you form on there. So that's one part. I think it's about showing up, but everyone on here I know networks online. Sam, Clubhouse is a big networking, even though you have your rooms and everything, it's also a big networking room. So one of the ways to definitely grow your business is using social media and setting aside time to get that networking done. So what I mean by that is getting into groups that are relevant to your industry, or groups where your ideal client is, and then finding out what they have going, and then building that networking platform from there. Because it is social media is, all these sites are called social networking sites. And it's a great way to not only form friendships, but really connect and grow your business from there. And then eventually the referrals start coming in. Most of my referrals have come from everyone here on this group too. So I'm like, okay, but as right now I'm building that back end there. So there are people that already know what it is that I'm doing. So when they need it, they know how to reach out.
I had to laugh, Krystle, because you said you're an oldie and you're like the youngest one in this group here. So that's why I laughed, because I was waiting to see what you were going to say.
Am I not the youngest in the group? I'm very rarely not the youngest in the group. Wow.
I think we're the same age.
Yeah, I'm an 84 baby.
Me too.
Yeah. So
Next month. Next month.
Yeah.
I'm a 59 baby.
And I'm
I like
smack
you,
dab
like-
in the middle. I'm 1971.
yeah. It's very rare that I'm not like, and I don't know how that happens, but a lot of the time people will say to me, I think too, like, for me, I'm very young. Like my mindset is still very young too, right? So I remember like when my birthday happened, I was like, so am I like, and Krystle, like you can tell me like, are we still in our mid 30s or are we in our late 30s? Like where are we? Like what is 37? I keep asking people,
Yeah.
this, and nobody can answer me.
The edge. You can be either.
Yeah. I'm like I'm
Well,
not.
mid-30s. I'm still gonna go with mid-30s. I would say when you're moving towards 39, then you can say then we can say
Late 30s, right? And then we'll blink and we'll be in our 40s, right?
I don't have any qualms. I'm 50 and free, man. Like I don't care.
Yeah.
Like I love,
Yeah.
being 50, right? I mean, I've got freedom in my life. It's like, woohoo, right?
Yeah.
My youngest just moved out now. She may move back in the fall. We'll see. But at least for a few months, I'm footloose and fancy free.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the next thing too with social media. You get to connect you with a whole wide audience. Whereas if you were really just building your business face to face, you're connecting with people that's probably in your network, but online and social media opens you up to working with people from all different walks of life.
Well, there are two Canadians and 2 Americans here.
Right?
Yeah.
I know for my upcoming RV trip, I've got a book that Carol recommended to us a while back, called Business is Still Show Business, Carol.
All business is still show business.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I'm looking in that. I want to read that because I know that was really, and that was part of Carol's journey as she was figuring it all out. But I think too, like we have to remember that, all business is still show business. We're going to show up on social media, but like our audience also just like, they just want us to show up. Like, hey, what are you doing today? Right? It's, hey, what are you doing today? What are you learning here? Just talk about like Carol, you went live in somebody else's group, right? Could have been a thing with the other group owner, but like, you know what, a lot of the time, and who knows how many people watch that video, right?
Yeah.
But what I loved about that story was we're so scared that like, cause I did my first Clubhouse room, I think last week. Right. And I'm like, oh, well, if nobody, I'm going to be here. I have a topic. I've put it up there. If nobody shows up, well, I'm going to work while I'm sitting here. Right. Like I'll just, cause I'm whatever, I guess I was at my desk while it was happening, or I could have gone for a walk. Right. Like whatever. But like, that's the thing. Nobody may show up, but you've got it. Like you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You're so right about showing up, because when COVID hit and I went from all offline to online, the first thing I did, and I recommend this to so many people, I've put a ton of people in his group. I put 3 more this past week. He's like, Carol, what does he call me? Krystle, his chief something. It's the Rise and Inspire Speakers group. It's run by David McRae. So last May, I joined this group. I knew nothing. And he had an inspiration week. And every day has a theme. And if you're in his group, you get to go talk for 30 minutes on that theme. I was so ignorant about Facebook. I didn't even know there was a comment section that you had to look at. And all I did is I just prayed that it went live, and I didn't go too long. He'd get mad at me. That's all I did. So I think it was about overcoming obstacles or something. So I talked for 30 minutes, got off, and I was like, oh, it was a Sunday afternoon. I went and had a cocktail. I'm like, yes, I did it. Right. 2 weeks later, from that talk, I got a new client over in London. And I thought, this stuff works. Like,
yeah.
That was my first foray. And I mean, I was so ignorant about Facebook. It was the first time I had ever gone live. I went live to go give a 30-minute talk. Who does that? Right.
Yep.
So right now I've been focusing in on Facebook and Clubhouse. Now that doesn't mean I don't have my finger in the other ones, because about a year or so ago, I mean, I hadn't been on Instagram in forever. I mean, forever. It just was an app that sat on my phone. I went on and I had like 5,000 followers. I went, okay, I haven't done anything in like 3 years and I have 5,000 followers. So, I do make sure that now I'm regularly posting on Instagram, but it's not my playhouse. But I have been focusing in on Facebook and Clubhouse. So my goals on Facebook is just to really get out there in a big way, especially with the Author to Authority book coming out. So I've been posting a lot about the book and sections and getting really good feedback there. My main focus is building the group.
Mm-hmm.
So the group's about 600 people. So, you know, if you've been enjoying this podcast and you want the Facebook experience, come join the Author to Authority group on Facebook, because, you know, we do a lot of different things in there, a lot of different teaching, training. We have fun in the group because we do a lot of wordplay, a lot of puns. People love, I post puns every single day and everybody loves them. But where I've been focusing in on is Clubhouse. And, you know, I was one of these Android people that were chomping at the bit. I'm watching everyone getting amazing results on Clubhouse, and I'm on Android. I'm like, come on, let me in. And so because I had, you know, registered like back when Clubhouse started, I got to be one of the Android beta testers. So I got in May. And so here's some hints. If you guys are using Clubhouse, so here's some hints and tips for you. Here's what I've learned. First of all, if you're going to start a room, have a co-host. Because if someone sees your room and they only see you there, they won't stay. So always have if you're good. That's why I'm not hosting rooms yet, because I'm kind of gathering and following and making connections with people and kind of figuring out, you know, what do I want my room to look like, my show to look like, and, you know, who am I going to have help co-host? So maybe that's something that we can do as the Authority Gang, is, you know, host these rooms on Clubhouse. Because I think if the four of us are on and we're having these really great conversations, that's the thing about Clubhouse too. It's not really about teaching and training, it's about the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And giving everybody opportunities to speak. And that's what it's been working well. And what I've been doing is joining some really good powerhouse groups on Clubhouse. And a lot of these groups will let you come up, introduce yourself, or comment, or ask a question. So every time I go into a new room, if they let me up on stage, I do a really great introduction to begin with. So I do my strong introduction, but then I provide something really valuable. You know, a hint, a tip, I answer somebody's question, you know, whatever. And I'm starting to gain authority on there. And every time that I'm on a stage and I say something, people start following me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm organically growing followers. Now I'm almost up to 200 in, let's say, May. I kind of started in May. So let's just say June and July, right? And I'm not on Clubhouse every day right now because just a lot going on in my life. But what I'm finding is that as I'm showing up, I'm getting the followers. So right now I want to build to about 300 followers, and then I'm going to start my own consistent room. So, you know, that's some hints and tips for when you're on Clubhouse, is really show up. Don't just listen. If someone will let you up on their stage, you get up there and you shine. You share your expertise. You know, that's how you show authority, is you take advantage of these. And I was telling another group, so was it Tuesday? Yeah, it was Tuesday. So I'm on Clubhouse and I'm, you know, it's like Instagram, you just scan, right? I'm scanning through all the different rooms, seeing, you know, I had some time, do I want to hop on one? And they had one, you know, share your story in 5 minutes and win $5,000. I'm like, ooh, I like that, right? And so I get on there. And, you know, you had to go off the site to register. That's how they're building their email list, right? And, you know, you had to get a free ticket to their conference. I don't know whether I'll go or not, but, and you do this and you get your 5 minutes to speak. And then they have a panel of judges that kind of critique you. And I thought, do I do this? Do I do this? And I thought, you know what? If I'm going to show up, I'm just going to show up. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? I don't win the $5,000. Okay. Right.
I might get some good feedback thow, right?
Yeah.
Like when you introduce, sometimes you get some really good feedback. I think it's interesting because Kim, I love your approach, and that's like, I think that's a great way to organically grow. And that's something that I'm going to be adding into my Clubhouse approach. But I created a club as soon as I could and just started hosting rooms. And I tell my audience that I'm going to be on there, and, you know, and consistency is key, right? So I'm like, it's going to be this day at this time, show up, don't show up, whatever. Right. But I tell my audience that I'm on there and share that. And I think that, you know, that's great. But if you really want to grow, like your approach, like that's kind of what you're saying, is that's kind of the next step, right? Like get out there and listen to other people. And there's all kinds of rooms and you can connect with people. And Clubhouse just introduced the
messaging,
what they call the back channel. So like, and if you've been on Clubhouse actively for a while, that could also be why your Instagram went up, because most people were going, like you would connect with somebody and you'd follow them on Clubhouse, but if you wanted to like talk to them like privately or outside of the rooms, you would go to Instagram to DM them, right?
Yeah.
So that could be it. But yeah, last week Clubhouse introduced back channels. So now you can actually, as you're going, and now we can start connecting even more and saying, I was just in a room with you. I loved what you said about X, Y, and Z. Would you like to co-host a room together?
Yeah. And one of the things that I see a lot of people doing, which I'm going to do, is, if you're up there talking and you have something free that you give away, you can now say, back channel me or DM me the word book, and I'll send you a free sample of my, and then obviously when they do that, you get their email address, you send them the link, to your email. So I'm going to be doing that as well. Unfortunately, as an Android user, they won't let me create a club. They're limiting to 2 clubs a month, and you have to be one of the top users right now to create a club on Clubhouse. So anyone who got in early and created a club is like in heaven, and us new ones.
Well, initially you had to apply. So I remember that I applied, and then I think they switched their process so that they were only giving it to the top users, right?
Yeah.
So, because I never heard anything about my application. And then one day because I wouldn't call myself a top user. Like you have more followers than I do. You're probably more active on it regularly than I am. I just went in one day and I could create a club. So I've got a small club that's starting.
You were an earlier adopter in your Apple. See, I think it's because I'm a leader.
Krystle is dying to say something. Krystle, say it.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Krystle.
Go ahead.
In good old Facebook, for those that might be having some challenges on Clubhouse, good old Facebook has introduced a Clubhouse version now called Backroom as well. So it's actually good, as you're building Clubhouse and you want to continue building your you can use the same strategies and then also apply them to that Backroom. And for Carol, who hasn't accepted that Clubhouse invite yet, but I sent, you can try that.
I think it's funny because when you look at all these platforms that are coming out, and I know Instagram, when Clubhouse started to and Instagram's kind of like going through I call it like they're in there, like they're 18 trying to go into, it's time to go into college type thing, right? They're like, so when Clubhouse first came out, they tried to create something similar. And I remember saying, no, but like Clubhouse is audio. I don't have to be on video. I don't want to be on, I don't want to be on video all the time, which is what I like about Clubhouse, right? So I don't know what happened with that in terms of on Instagram, but if you go on Twitter has all kinds of stuff built into the platform. And I was like, I'm not a Twitter user, so I didn't know, but like they have stories now. They have, I think they call it spaces or something, but they have like an audio only come into a room type thing, right? So it's really funny because, we notice these, and I was saying like, we notice these things on other platforms that we use. So for like Instagram, I'm like, Instagram, just stay in your lane, do your thing, right? Like just do your thing. And of course now they've like gone, they were the photo sharing platform. And now they're like, no, we're not that anymore. Right. Cause they're literally going through, we go to college, we try to reinvent ourselves. Right. And so I remember being like, just stay in your lane, Instagram. And then I went to Twitter and I was like, oh, wow, look at all this cool stuff that Twitter can do. Right. And it's just so funny because if you're not on that platform all the time, you miss it, right? I'm not on Facebook, not a Facebook user, not somebody who's, and I'm sure Facebook can hear me through one of my phones or something right now, but not a Facebook user, not a fan. But, for other people, it really works. And that's why I always say, like, just do what's right for you. Like Twitter, do Twitter. You like this, do this, right? It's a combination of what works for you and where your audience is hanging out.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think that it's important in social media is that, that consistency and that you really learn how to use the platform. Now, will Facebook rooms take off? I don't know. Like it didn't appeal to me. Like, I don't even know if I can access it yet. Like, but I'm just kind of like, yeah, Facebook rooms.
But you can't compete with Facebook's groups.
No, 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 no.
Groups are
Well,
the
but I'm
best.
talking like about
Yeah.
their version of Clubhouse, right? Like, is that
Yeah.
really going to take off?
Well,
I
it didn't.
I
It
don't
didn't
know.
work when they had rooms. They've always had rooms. You can
No,
always
it's
host a
not
room.
called- it's not rooms, it's called something called back. It's totally new.
Oh.
And it is, so it's not the rooms, it's different to rooms. It's just like Clubhouse, like is this Shetty, whatever, that monk guy who's now a motivational speaker. He had a relaxation room that you can just go in and they're sharing stuff. So it is something very new that now people are following on it. So I'm just going to monitor it and see it. But one of the key things I want to just say is that as much as we need to be on social media, and we have to, especially with all these different platforms coming out, as a PSA, always still take time to disconnect from it, because there are different aspects of your business that you still have to grow. And if you take a lot of your time and energy into getting onto all of these, it can get overwhelming. And you get discouraged, and you don't want that to happen at all, right? So as everyone said, we all take a little bit, see what works for you, and then grow on that. And then as you accomplish that, then move on, because it can get as a somebody who had loved social media, and I was from like high five days, high five, ICQ days, all these things. I'm like,
Oh, ICQ.
yeah, I was like, I'm getting overwhelmed. So far less for someone who is new to it. And now you're thinking, do I have to be on all of this? You don't have to be on all.
No. And I noticed too that Facebook's now launching podcasts. So that's something I'm going to look into.
Facebook wants you to be on Facebook forever and like all the time. But I think one of the things is, like when you're looking at the platforms, like know what they do well, like know the nuances. Like you cannot touch Facebook groups. Like that is their, like if I had to say, like, what is one thing that like you cannot, like Facebook, you cannot deny they do well, Facebook groups is one of them. Like you can't touch that, right? Instagram, it's the same thing. Instagram stories, right? Remember, Facebook tried to do stories, and I don't really watch stories on Facebook, but on Instagram, it's the first thing I do, right? I spent all my time in people's stories and in the search function looking up Loki spoilers, right? So there's like, these are the things I go, and I think it's interesting too, because, when I'm thinking about social media, I think about like, which platforms do I go on for business and which ones do I go on for entertainment? Right. And I think our customers do the same thing. So there's such a great balance. And Krystle, you talk a lot about that, like how to balance it all, and how to show up and give value without giving it all away for free. And you do a lot of that great work.
Thanks. And I think too, to add to that point that you said, Sam, is that they want you to show up, and they want to see you. So, and we touched on this before, and that's where the stories come in. That's why I always try to get Carol to send me pictures of Doppler when you're babysitting him, because in addition to business, I think people are drawn nowadays to authenticity and vulnerability, and just seeing that not only are you very good at the job and at the work that you're doing, and you're so knowledgeable, I want to see the human side of you too, which stories is really good for showcasing. So you don't have to put it on your feed where you can just have everything professional, but your stories is like a nice little behind the scene footage where people really connect with you, because they say, oh, they're a real person, right? They're not just someone who's delivering all these, like they're a real person. They're a real person like me. I can connect with them some more now.
Well, you know what, ladies, we are out of time. I think we're a few minutes over. So you know what, maybe we'll pick up this discussion again next time, because I think it's a really great discussion we've been having, or who knows, we might just do something different. We'll see. Anyway, this has been Carol Boston, Samantha King, Krystle Dookoo, and Kim Thompson-Pinder as the Authority Gang on the Author to Authority podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you on the very next episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye.